France had decided to build a nuclear arsenal of its own, and so it came down to the Pacific Ocean and started blowing up bombs over the little atolls that it owned. First it removed the native population and then started blowing up bombs. Now when you blow up an atomic bomb, the fallout moves in the stratosphere from west to east, dropping around various parts of the hemisphere. The fallout in the northern hemisphere doesn't mix with the fallout in the southern hemisphere. Because Russia and America have blown up a lot of bombs, the northern hemisphere has a high level of fallout, the southern hemisphere has little. But the French added to our fallout, and I lived in Australia at that time, in South Australia, and our radioactive levels went from a measurement of 5 picocuries per litre in the rainwater to 1,860 picocuries. Now in South Australia where I lived, it's a very dry climate, and people collect water in tanks. And this radioactive rain fell following a drought, and so the tanks were empty. So they filled up with relatively radioactive rain. I was asked to speak on a news show one night on television about the effects of fallout. And as I've done medicine and I knew something about strontium-90, I spoke about the fact that strontium-90, when it occurs in fallout, concentrates thousands of times in the grass, thousands more times in the milk and the meat as the cattle eat the grass or the sheep eat the grass. Then people eat the meat and drink the milk, eat the cheese, and they then concentrate the strontium-90 thousands more times in their own bodies. Now when, for instance, you drink milk containing strontium-90, the body thinks it's calcium, and the bones are made of calcium, so the strontium-90 is deposited in the bones, where it irradiates a few cells for many years, and one day that person may develop a cancer. I also said that babies are about 20 times more sensitive to the effects of radiation than adults. Well, every time the French blew up another bomb, I was asked back on television to talk about fallout. So as they blew up a lot of bombs, I had a large exposure, and people quickly learned that fallout was not good for them. And in 9 months, the Australian people rose up en masse to protest against the French test. There were spontaneous marches in the capital cities in the street every weekend. Australia usually doesn't protest like this. Australia is a very quiet country. Many people aren't very politically aware. They don't know who their politicians are. They sunbake a lot. We're a nation of surfies. We drink a lot of beer. We gamble a lot on the races. And we don't get involved in politics. But somehow the Australians were very angry that the French should be coming down to our southern hemisphere, called a nuclear-free zone,